Oh, hey, what's up, you guys? How's it going? It's Papa, and today we have a tier list. We are going to be going over every single card that came out / got announced for Rarity Collection 2, Electric Boogaloo. I have the tier list cut up into a few different simple spots. We have Much Needed, which is, of course, a much needed Rarity Collection card. Pretty good. It's a card that's, pretty good. Pretty good to be there. ICY is kind of like the okay category, as in it's like not the best card to be in here, but it's also not the worst card that could be in here. Not my bag. It's just not my bag, baby. Yeah. And then we have Sol and Luna. I'm going to go ahead and say before we start this tier list that I actually don't think Rarity Collection 2 is a bad set. I think we actually got a lot of good stuff that came in this set. And if you look at it very closely, we actually have a lot of good cards here. I know there's been a lot of outrage that kind of happened online today about how much people don't like this set, but honestly, I don't care. I don't. I think this set is really good. I was going to do a prediction about what could be on the list, but now I can't do that. But before we do start the tier list as well, be sure to like and subscribe if you like videos like this, and if you don't, well, do it anyway. Every time you like and subscribe, it makes me know that I'm doing something right. But starting off with our tier list, we have Sol and Luna. Sol and Luna doesn't really make a lot of sense, if I may be honest. I don't get why it's in here. I'm sure a lot of you guys also don't get why it's in here. But we're not going to discuss it too much. It gets its own category because it is that bad. Aluber is actually pretty good. I think it makes a lot of sense for Aluber to be in Rarity Collection. We had Fallen of Albaz in last year's Rarity Collection, so it does make sense that Aluber would be getting the same treatment. And also, Konami just has a really big love for making the branded deck as high rarity as possible. So the way that they could do that now is by adding Aluber to the pile. So why not? It's your main guy, other than Albaz, of course. So it's pretty good. Blue Eyes Alternative is honestly probably going to go in the not my bag category, as well as the Blue Eyes Jet Dragon. These cards are very Chaos Hunter, I can see why this is in here. I mean, honestly, it has an ultra rare print, it has a secret rare print, so it does make sense for it to be included into the set. However, I don't really see it being too crazy. I don't think Chaos Hunter is going to be that playable in the upcoming meta. And then also on top of that, I think this card just comes in and out of formats as well, but it's never going to be like that kind of meta defining card. So I can see why it's in the set, but at the same time, I wouldn't really get your hopes up about it being playable. Fantastical Dragon Phantasme, I think this was much needed. I'm just going to put the alt art, if it'll load. I'll put the alt art right next to it as well. This is going to kick off our much needed, because if you were paying attention before the reprint was announced, I mean, Phantasme was already an announced reprint before yesterday by the time this video goes live, hopefully. Phantasme was a much needed reprint because even the gold copies were starting to become like at least like $3 to $5, and then the super rare prints were expensive, the ultra rares were expensive, and of course the secret rare was expensive. But now you can have Phantasme, whichever rarity that you prefer. You can have it in a lower rarity, or you can have it in the max rarity. And honestly, a QCR Phantasme is going to be really hot. On top of hand traps, Joel and Lockbird, I'm going to put this up here as much needed as well. I mean, granted, every copy of Droll has been anywhere between like $5 to like $30, whatever copy you may be. But if you were playing commons or you were playing rares, those could also range you between $5 and $10 before the Rarity Collection announcement. And honestly, I think it's going to be good to have extra Drolls. I mean, I definitely can see this card getting banned one day, because you guys all know how I feel about Droll and Lockbird. But I also feel Droll is a pretty good reprint because a lot of like budget players weren't really playing it because they felt they didn't have to. Just because this card is mostly seen as a side deck card. This does get some main deck play from time to time, but for the most part, you do see this card in the side deck. But I think Droll's pretty decent. I mean, people are a really big fan of the alt art. I'm personally not, but it also gives players the choice to pick whether you want the alt or the regular, and you get them in many rarities as possible. DD Crow is probably going to end up as a pretty good spot. I mean, basically, I'm seeing this as a upgrade for me personally, because I've been playing with ultras for like the last 3 years. But I also feel like DD Crow is very strong as well, because it gives people just more sought after bulk. They're basically giving the whole hand trap lineup, basically an upgrade. We saw all the hand traps on last year's list get upgrade prints, so I mean, you might as well throw a crow on there. But I definitely don't see it as much needed because this card was easily accessible. There was commons that were cheap, there was holos that were cheap. Looking at you, Dual Devastator. But Crow being in pretty good is pretty decent, so I'm not gonna argue with it too much. I'm just glad that I'm gonna have a matching set for my other hand traps. Ghost Ogre, I'm gonna put as a, like, I can see why. The only problem I have with this and ranking it higher is that it is only the alt art that I've seen be announced. I haven't seen the original art be announced, but that's why I'm putting it like kind of in the middle, because I know a lot of people don't like this artwork of Ghost Ogre. I just think they could have done more if they wanted to include the other artwork as well. I'm gonna put Ghost Mourner kind of in the same category, as in I can see why it's in there because all the other Ghost Girls got announced for Rarity last year. I think we're just missing Ghost Reaper and Dogwood, if I'm not mistaken, unless they've been announced, but going based off a list that I saw. I personally just don't see this as too sought after. I know a lot of people love this artwork, but again, since we are only getting this artwork and we're not getting the original artwork, it is kind of awkward to just have to choose on this one for Rarity Collection. Skullmeister, I'm not gonna lie, this is not my bag. It's a really great card and I really like playing Skullmeister any chance I get to, but I am not a fan of this card in Rarity Collection. Again, I can kind of put it in the ICY category if you really wanted to, but I have it in not my bag because I have First Ed Secrets and I love my First Ed Secrets, and now that it's in Rarity Collection, I'm kind of forcing myself to get the other copies, and I don't want to do that, but I probably am anyway. Super Nimble Mega Hamster, and I'm going to put this up there as well with it. I'm going to put Raikou in the same category with the Nimble Hamster because I think these are kind of a pair. Basically, with all the retro formats that people have been playing, if you wanted to play holo versions of Nimble Hamster and holo versions of Raikou, it was going to cost you a lot of money. And I'm not going to lie, because I used to have supers of Raikou, but I got rid of them because life. But I honestly feel like these were a really good pair to include into Rarity Collection, because now it will let people that haven't been able to play retro formats because they don't want to spend like $2 to $3, $4, whatever it is on Nimble Hamster, like $3 to $4 on Raikou's, whatever it may be. They don't have to do that anymore. Now you can just play cheap holos and the deck makes it even more affordable, so that's really cool. Rescue Rabbit, or not Rescue Rabbit, whatever it is, Rescue Cat, both artworks, I can see why they're in here. I can definitely see why Rescue Rabbit's in here if they were going to be doing the other two cats. The main issue I have with this, again, I know it's a retro format card, but again, I don't really like the idea of both artworks in here because it's just an extra card that could have been something else, if I may be honest. Rescue Rabbit's cool, I love this card, I really do, but it didn't really need to be in here. Moving on to Not My Bag, I am personally just not a fan of these cards. I think this was just a scheme. It's really cool for players that wanted to play this because it does give the casual base who wanted to play like the Silent Swordsman archetype more affordable copies. So I think I'm actually just going to go ahead and move this to I Can See Why, because this is more for the casual audience, the people that want to play decks that are based off the anime, and that really is about it there. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail on these cards because I have a lot of cards to go through and I'm going to try and make this video as quick as possible. Moving on, we have Pirelli. I think this is pretty good. I mean, it definitely destroys the set Amazing Defenders in terms of long-term value, but I think it's pretty cool because you could only get this card ultra rare or collector's rare before, but now that it is in Rarity Collection, you can get it as an ultimate rare, you can get it as a collector's rare, diet collector's rare because it's the second coming, or you can get it as a QC rare, so that's also very strong. Magician's Souls, we knew about this, so I'm just going to put it in Not My Bag because I'm personally not a fan of this card. I mean, it's really good, don't get me wrong, but it's just not my playstyle. Illusion of Chaos, this should also be Not My Bag because this card did just get reprinted in Megatins, so it's kind of confusing as to why it is getting reprinted again. I get it because it's a popular card, it's an anime card, Magician of Black Chaos, not Illusion of Chaos, but it's the same guy, let's be honest. Saravis is kind of weird here. I can see why this card is getting reprinted. I really can. I don't really like the idea of this being in here because my secrets lose value, but that's just me being personal. Saravis is cool though, because if you really wanted to have like holo prints of Saravis for your like voiceless deck or whatever it may be. The card's also very generic too because it's acted as more of a hand trap than it has for an actual archetype for the last few years, so I can definitely see why it's in here. Ultimate Slayer is really just not my bag. It doesn't really make sense why Ultimate Slayer is in here because they had last year's Megatins to put Ultimate Slayer in the in like some kind of reprint. But now that Ultimate Slayer is in Rarity Collection, then what from Power of the Elements is going to be in the Megatins this year? It just doesn't make sense. More on that later. Fusion Deployment is actually pretty good. This is a very popular card for a lot of Fusion based strategies. I'm not just talking about branded, but I'm talking about like other decks. I believe Chimera might have a few lists that play this card. It's also really good with Fluffle. I think this is a cool reprint. I would like to have a playset of this Ultimate Rare. I think that'd be really cool. Polymerization, pretty good. I think this card needed it. Not just because like secrets were expensive for this card, but I think it's going to be nice that everyone can have an affordable holo of polymerization, because this card has just been reprinted common after common up the ass for like the last like 10 or 15 years now. So being able to have like a QC polymerization is really good. Abomination's Prison, I'm gonna put this in pretty good. This card's expensive. This card's really expensive. More on Soul of Rage later when we get to it, but Abomination's Prison being reprinted in Rarity Collection is really strong, because I know a lot of people still want to be able to play Unchained even though Shivaro is at 1. I think the deck is still really strong, but being able to have access to Abomination Prisons now that they're not like about like 20-30 bucks, whatever they used to be now. I mean, they probably dropped a lot, but it's really nice to have an affordable copy, so that's cool there. Mind Control is really cool. I'm a very big fan of this. I don't think it's needed per se, but I think it's just a matter of like, it's really good for more retro players. I didn't know this card was at 3. I honestly completely forgot that Mind Control came to 3 in the last list, but yeah, I'm a fan. I think it's pretty good. Gold Sark, honestly, not my bag. This card has a lot of reprints. This card has ultra rare, secret rare, super rare, gold rare. I mean, now you can get an ultimate rare, you can get a quarter century rare, or if you're really bougie, you can get the prize card version, but good luck. Foolish Burial, I'm gonna put up here with much needed. Not necessarily per se for the fact that it's a hard copy to get a hold of, but if you look at the foil versions of Foolish Burial, it'll range you anywhere between like $5 and like $30. Or if you're really feeling it, you can get the Turbo Pack version, which is a super rare. But now that you have it in Rarity Collection, this card being a quarter century and also a super rare, just destroys all the older value. I mean, it's really cool for people that want to like make their decks like all the same rarity, like me. But I was prolonging getting a high rarity Foolish because I had a feeling it was going to be in Rarity Collection, and it is. So win-win. Bingo Machine Go, I'm actually going to put this up here with much needed. I don't know if you saw Bingo Machine Go, but they were like around $20 each, sometimes even more if people got really into the Blue Eyes hype. If like Team Sam posted like a Blue Eyes deck profile, people are like, oh, I need to get my Bingo Machines Go like now. Now it's affordable. Charge of the Light Brigade, I'm also going to put it up here at much needed. If you saw common Charge of the Light Brigades, and if you would have told me years ago that common Charge of the Light Brigade was going to be like an $8, $10 common, whatever it is right now, well, before Rarity got announced, I would have called you crazy. Charge of the Light Brigade having a foil reprint is very nice. It's going to maybe hurt the value of the secret rare from the original set, but quarter century Charge of the Light Brigade. Preparation of Rites, I mean, I can see why, because they did pre-prep last year, so I'm not going to go super into advanced like definition here. Pot of Duality, I'm not going to put it in much needed. It is pretty good, but I can honestly see why it's in here, if I may be honest, just because they did all the pots in the last set, so of course they're going to put Pot of Duality in this one. Also, I'm going to put MST, Twin Twister, and what's it called, Cosmic Cyclone in here as well, mainly because I'm just gonna put them all together because this looks odd. MST, Twin Twister, and Pot of Duality, there we go, that's better. I have these as, and I can see why, because honestly, if we're looking at last year's Rarity Collection, they're basically just clumping a bunch of cards that essentially do the same thing, all in the same prints. But honestly, I can definitely see why they would want to go ahead and print these cards, because it is very good. MST already has like most of the copies that are announced. The only thing I think it doesn't have is the collector's rare and quarter century. It does have an ultimate rare copy, and then it has like definitely plenty of other copies as well. Twin Twisters is pretty cool. I mean, it was starting to see like quite a bit of play for Snake Eyes, I think just like a couple like weeks or maybe months ago now at this point. Cosmic Cyclone, I can see why, because this card is super massively played right now in the format with your Runic stun decks, just outing any kind of floodgate, whatever it may be. There's definitely a reason why I can see Cosmic Cyclone being in here. Book of Moon. Yeah, I'm sorry. Book of Eclipse, yeah, honestly, this card also just got reprinted as Secret not that long ago, so having it in here is kind of just not my bag per se. I mean, it's really cool because you can get these cards quarter century and you can get them in the matching rarities, but you could do that already when they both came Secret, they both came Ultra. Yeah, not my bag. The Pirelli cards, I can see why, of course, because if they're doing Pirelli, they're going to be putting these cards in there as well. The only thing that like kind of questions me is the sleeping memory. They just printed this as an OTS Super, so I don't get why they would put it in the OTS, but then also put it in Rarity Collection like directly after. Just doesn't make sense to me. I can see why at the same time. Yeah. It just kind of bothers me. Forbidden Lance. This is a pretty much needed reprint, I'm not gonna lie. This card was only Super. Oh, and it was gold, but let's be honest, we're not playing gold. Platinum players, I don't know what you're doing. So we really needed like a big reprint of this card, and being able to have this card higher rarity is quite nice because you can use it in the main advanced formats, and you can also play it in your retro formats, so it's a win-win for both teams. Crossout Designator is a much needed reprint. I can't really express how much this card needed to be reprinted. You could only get this card in Megatons, being 2 different years, of course, but it was only Secret, it was only Ultra. This card comes in and out of formats a lot. Basically, if you're playing any like 1-card starter deck, then just like a shit ton of hand traps, then you put Crossout in because it's just that good. Emergency Teleport. I can see why it's in here, but honestly, I don't think it's really needed, but I can definitely see why they threw it in here because it's just more retro love. You can also do it in an advanced format, but it's mainly for the retro audience, I want to say. Exosister packs, this is just not my bag, man. It's just not. I hate this deck with a burning passion. I have lost numerous invites because of this deck, and you know what? It's just another shifter deck, so I'm not going to get into it. Xyz Encore, I'm actually going to put up here with pretty good. It definitely is a pretty good reprint because every time this card does get played, the ultra rare copies of this card just jumps from like $5 to like $30 to $40. It was just gross. You could only get this card ultra in 2 different sets. It was like a mega pack, and then it was also its original set, but now that it's in rarity, we don't have to worry about this card spiking anymore. Enemy Controller is honestly not my bag. This card just got an ultimate rare in the OTS, so I don't get why they would throw it in rarity right after. It just doesn't appeal to me. Same with these, the field spells. I'm gonna put them all in not my bag. I can definitely see why they would be like okay to most people, but I can also see why they're also pretty good to people. But for me personally, I'm putting it in not my bag because if you look at Calarium, if you look at Perlerino, and you look at Pressured, these cards are supposed to be in the Megatins at the end of the year. So if they're putting it in rarity, then that means they can't put it in Megatins. And if they do put it in Megatins, then it's just another waste of a spot. Like, what are they gonna do? Make these cards common in the Megatins? And then Reichphobia just also got a reprint in the Megatins. So why is it in here? Why? God, this one is so bad. I'm just gonna put it with Sol and Luna because it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would they put Anti-Spell in Rarity Collection right after they just limited the damn card? I don't get it. Like, honestly, and the secret rares from the video game promo is just better. Like, that's the high rarity. I don't want to play this card quarter century, especially if it's at 1. I don't want to play this card at all. Sol and Luna. Skill Drain, I can see why it's being reprinted because honestly, it's the last real floodgate at 3, but also, this is your guys' fault. All of you stun players that like to play Runic Stun, or you like to play some other bullshit strategies that max out on 3 skill drains, all you Labyrinth players that play skill drain, this is your fault. Solemn Strike and the other Solemns, the Old Men, I can see why they're in here, mainly because, again, it's just more filler. And if you look at the trap lineup, there's only 5 trap cards in this set. So basically, the set really needed it. I don't know what it is with Konami and Rarity Collection, but they just do not like printing trap cards. They just don't. I don't know. I don't know why. Moving on to the fusions, we got Guardian Chimera, which honestly I believe is pretty good. This card is really expensive for people that don't pay attention to the market. I do, but this card is very expensive. This card was ranging you anywhere between like 20 to like $40 a copy, depending on which version you got. And then also on top of that, it has a collector's rare printing, so that does kind of destroy the value of the original collector's rare. But if you are playing a fusion-based deck, branded, speaking of pretty much, I'm gonna put this in much needed, honestly. This card was kind of gross. Dragoon being a like $25 Ultra or a $25 Secret, whichever one it was honestly really aggressive for the longest time. I'm kind of glad it's getting reprinted because it was either you played those two copies, which again was going to cost you anywhere between like $25 to $30 on the copy, or you get the Starlight Rare, which is honestly probably going to be tanking the bed the most out of this hit. But honestly, it gives more casual players that like to play like loose strategies, basically the people that don't know how to win, have cheaper options for Dragoon. So good for you guys, I guess. Masquerade is not my bag. I hate this card, but I can definitely see why it's getting reprinted, because like most of the branded extra deck is quarter century, so they're just adding more to the pile. I guess in that case, we kind of have to put it here, but personally, it's just not my favorite. This card doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get why they put Rindrum in here. I mean, in a way I do, because it's not quarter century, and Konami just loves making branded cards quarter century rare. But Rindrum, again, is supposed to be one of the cards from the sets that are in the Megatins, so why put it in Rarity Collection? Unless they decide to do both. Again, maybe a common printing, who knows? Garura is not my bag. This card just got reprinted in the Megatins too. Like, if we were going to be putting these cards in Rarity Collection, why put them in the Megatins? Also, Pote was not announced for last year, but Garura was still in the tins last year, but Pote is also supposed to be in the Megatins this year. So like, I can also see them putting Garura as like a common in the Megatins this year. It's gross. Not my bag. Just not my bag. Psychic End Punisher is definitely Sol and Luna. I mean, this is gross. Like, why is this card in here? Why? Next, I'm going to be talking about Trishula. I can put it in the I can see why, because they're definitely giving a lot more retro archetype or like retro themed decks a lot of love. And who doesn't love a quarter century Trishula? I mean, probably the Starlight fans, the DT fans, the Ultimate Rare fans. This card has a lot of printings. Blue Eyed Spirit Dragon is not my bag. I mean, this card is, who cares? Not gonna lie. Crystal Wing actually is a pretty much needed reprint. I don't know if you saw Crystal Wing prices, but they are kind of gross. The card comes super, ultra, secret, and ghost rare, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong if that's the only ones. But honestly, even any copy of Crystal Wing was expensive, so having them in Rarity Collection where you can pick and choose which one you want to do is pretty good for the fan base. Cyframe Lord Omega, I think this is a pretty good reprint, I'm not gonna lie. I think this card is really cool. I play it in my Lightsworn list currently, so having an upgrade is very nice. Coral Dragon is not my bag. Card just got reprinted in the starter deck thing, not really cool. Hyper Librarian is pretty good. I think having a QCR Librarian is going to be very hot, and I'm sure a lot of the Tengu players will agree with me. Number 38, I think it's pretty good. I mean, I don't think it's needed because every copy of this was pretty much affordable, unless you wanted to play the Gold Secret, but nobody's doing that. Traptrix Rafflesia, I love Traptrix as a deck, but it's not my bag. I don't think it was needed. It comes common. It's very accessible, but I mean, I guess like now you can have any hollow foil point that you want with this card, but that's just me. Break Sword, as much as I love Phantom Knights, it's not my bag. I don't really think we needed this card to be reprinted. It's not doing anything. Phantom Knights don't get any love as they should. Sorry, Julio. Exo Sister Magnifica, so this one's different in my honest opinion, as in like, I'm just gonna put it in I can see why it's getting reprinted, because this card is really expensive. It's the only Exo Sister card that hasn't been reprinted, so I can see why it's getting reprinted, but at the same time, I think this card should have been in like the next Battles of Legends set that we're getting, or we could have gotten this in last year's Megatins, but we didn't. So I can see why it's getting reprinted, but at the same time, like we really didn't need packs in here. Pretty good reprint is Abyss Dweller. I mean, there's a lot of printings for Abyss Dweller, but now you can have a higher rarity Abyss Dweller, so you don't really have to have the Ultimate Rare copy anymore. You can get the Prismatic Ultimate, you can get the Collector Rare, or of course, if you want to be like me, you can get the Quarter Century Rare. because I'm going to get the quarter century rare because I really like Abyss Dweller a lot. Dagaris is not my bag. I don't really think this card needed to be in here. I mean, it's a good card, don't get me wrong, but I just don't see the need for it. Same with Borderland Dragon. I think this card's kind of whatever. I mean, even when you were playing it with Dragon Link, I don't think it was the best card or anything for the deck, but not my bag. Underworld Goddess is I can see why, because they wanted to do like all the mommies this set. We got Apollosa, we got Masquerena, and we have Underworld. So essentially just them if they had a baby. Access code is much needed, if I may be honest. I think this card needed a reprint a long time ago. Every copy of this card was at least $30. You couldn't really get a cheaper copy other than that. But now that you don't have to play gold, you can have a super rare access code talker. Just to let you know though, super rare access code talker, you can respond to the effect's activation. Sorry. Apollosa, I think is pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, Apollosas did start getting more expensive too when they realized that they can make this in the end board for Snake Eyes, but it's just a really great card. The only thing that I don't like about Apollosa is that we don't get the original artwork for this set, so that's just how I feel about that. Unchained Soul of Rage was actually much needed, if I may be honest. This card was expensive. Even if you wanted to get the ultra rare, I think it was at least $20, and if you got the secret rare, then you had money, because these things were about like $30 to $40 for the secrets. Yeah, definitely a much needed reprint. And then I'm going to talk about Heavenly Sphere, what's it called? Heavenly Spheres, not my bag. It just has so many ultra printings that it's going to have another ultra rare printing, and then it's going to have 6 different other printings. Card's going to be bulk. I wouldn't worry about this card at all. And Masquerena is pretty good. I know a lot of people really like this artwork of Masquerena, but I feel the same exact way I do about the Apollosa, where they should have included the original copy as well. But that's just how I feel. Well, guys, that's going to go ahead and do it for the tier list. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I don't really do a whole lot of these, mainly because I don't have the time to do them most of the time. But I thought it would be just something fun to do, something a little bit different for the channel. If you really liked how this turned out, let me know in the comment section down below. And let me know what card you're looking forward to the most out of Rarity Collection. But until next time, guys, this has been Papa, and I will catch you all in my next video.